Idaho Lions fans, welcome to the Detroit Lions podcast. This is episode 563, the Detroit Lions 2025 Combine Preview. This is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit. I am your dashing host, the dashingest of hosts, Chris, and with me is my good friend and equally gorgeous, sexually alluring Jeff the Riz Risen. How you doing, brother?
I'm a little scared at the moment.
What?
That's good. The Combine's here. It's great.
I thought we had a moment
this
there.
This is the fun time of the, we get actual football to talk about again. We've had a little break, and now there's football things going on again, and that makes me very happy.
This is fun. I mean, it's actually there's a good amount of stuff going on between now and really early June. And then, of course, you hit the cliff there for a little bit. But this is a really interesting, fun time. It's kind of the incubation period. It's where you see so many strategies and pieces coming together. It's pretty fun stuff here. All right, let's talk about this a little bit. We got a lot. We'll do a warm-ups really quick. We have Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes combine interviews that we will talk about. We have the Lions free agents for 2025, the 2025 NFL Combine Preview. I think I said that. I don't know. A whole lot more. Got a great show. Riz, you ready to go, brother?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
All right. Whew, okay, I'll try to stay with it now. All right, let's back. There we go. All right.
Hey,
we'll get with it. Everything is. I'm still scrambulated. Okay, we're on it. I promise we're with it now, folks. Let's get into it. The first warm-ups. Irony in Green Bay. Riz,
God.
Never in my life.
I know what this is. I know what this is.
Never in my life did I think that a team like the Packers, with a name like the Packers, would want to ban the tush push. You would think that they were the biggest proponents of the tush push, but maybe being a power bottom isn't their thing.
Apparently it's not, because they are the team that put that forward, and their GM Brian Gutekunst today tried to run away from that too. At his combine podium interview, he sort of ran away from it. I don't really know what's going on with that, but he acknowledged that it was them who put it forward, that the Eagles can't do that out of player safety concerns. Sure. Let's go with that.
Yeah. Oh, Angel, thank you. Been too long. Miss you. I'll miss you too, my man. It's crazy. It's crazy. And Jeff, yes, we're late. I apologize. A couple minutes. You know how it is. Complicated business, this podcasting. All right, we'll get it. That's the warm-ups. I do want to say, I have something I'm putting together, folks, special, and I'm going to get the first episode out this week. I'm doing my best. I'm going to shoot this week and get it edited and put together. I've done some deep, dark depths of the research science chamber of the Detroit Lions podcast compound, and I've got a really, really in-depth look, supported by data, of the NFL draft and and what successful type of strategies have worked out with picking players using data from the last 10 years in the NFL, with team production success and rising teams and falling teams and teams that have failed over time, looking at all that and the different strategies and how it's changed when different GMs and different strategies came in. It's really, really interesting. And the first episode is going to talk about athleticism. Since the Combine's here, I don't want to give too much away, but I'm going to tell you, it is a really, really good series. So my first foray into something this big of a 7 episode series. Wow. I wrote the script. I went deep and just kind of, again, locked the door, put the propeller beanie on, and started researching and web searching and going hard, and took a long time to put this together. It's a lot.
About the linebackers specifically, because that is one of the more difficult positions to judge athletic ceiling and athletic floor versus football skill and football IQ. And the Lions have gotten it right now, but for decades they got it wrong with Ernie Sims and Jared Davis and any number of people that were just not, either they're great athletes and terrible football players, Devin White comes to mind, or really bad athletes and fantastic football players that just don't have the juice to play in the NFL. the linebacker position more than any is like that. And we actually had a discussion about that in our Patreon Slack this week about don't get super wild over there's a couple of linebackers that are in Indy this week, and I will be there tomorrow. I'm still at home tonight for family reasons. But
we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we will. But there are a couple of linebackers that are down there this week that are going to go, oh my God, wow. This guy, how is he not a first-round pick? Well, watch him play.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll get into that. It's going to be big. It's 47 pages.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
47
I haven't previewed any of this, so I'm looking forward to seeing it with everybody else too.
I'm interested to see. It's either going to go really, really well or going to crash and burn really hard. And I think some people are just going to crash and burn it because that's what they like to do, but I don't care. You never read the comments, I've learned.
Oh, God, no.
Except while we're broadcasting. Except while we're live, right? Then we do it. Then we love to do that. So
there's there's some investment when you're doing it live. Like people, okay, all right, you're following along with the show. Thank you for that, by the way. We appreciate that. We really do. Yeah. But afterwards, if you comment after, I'm probably not going to read it. Who knows?
Man. So anyway, yeah, that's coming. I think it's gonna be fun. Seven episodes starting this week. I'm gonna try to do them weekly, and get them out. I may shoot like 2 at once to get them edited in and see how we can fit it. So if my clothes don't change between episodes, don't freak out. I may actually try to remember to change my shirt in between just because, right? So I don't know. It's silly stuff. Like the dumb shit you have to think about when you do this stuff, right? I mean,
I was just in a group chat with somebody who made a point of noting that a prominent podcaster wears the same clothes in every podcast. And
I rotate
he's
between
unaware
like 4
that he
shirts.
does it.
I rotate between like 4 shirts like all week. Like I don't need to because
I just wear what I got on. Like I don't really dress for it. This is what I wore today. It was nice here in Michigan today. 50 degrees. Everything started to melt. It was fantastic.
Good for you. All comfort for me. I got these like rec tech shirts that are like the most comfortable shirts I've ever owned, and I just cycle through them because they're great. All right, let's roll on. Before we get into our fashion advice, Dan Campbell Combine interview, because if you need fashion advice, we are definitely the people to ask. Dan Campbell. By the way,
Dan Campbell's shirt today was awesome.
Motor City, baby.
He had a Motor City shirt on. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I love how he just reps the city, not just the team. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can tell Dan has a real connection to Detroit. And when he said he wanted the job in Detroit, I really believe he loves the city and knows what it means to the city, and recognizes what being successful here could really mean. Not just like for a legacy, right? And that's one of the things you think about as you start doing this kind of thing. What are people going to think of me, right? And what a great place. And you can tell he absolutely loves the city. And when he shows up at the Ford plant the first week he's in the job, what a guy, man. What a freaking guy. All right, let's talk about it.
How many people thought that was patronizing? Like when he wore the race helmet for the thing that they do.
Freaking hilarious. That's my favorite Dan Campbell.
That's connecting. Yeah. That's connecting with your fans. That's not fake.
Having fun, man. Having fun. You know what I mean?
Football should be fun.
Yeah.
He's never lost sight of that. They certainly work very hard, but you got to have some fun with it too. If you don't have fun, you're Matt Patricia.
Now might be a bad time to tell Jeff it's 89 degrees out here in San Diego. Yeah, we hit 74 and beautiful here for about the next 2 weeks. Yeah. It's fantastical.
Yeah, that's great. My wife's actually in Tampa right now, and she sent me a picture of a screenshot of the weather forecast. I'm like, that's nice.
Oh, well. Hello, Mrs.
I'll be in Indy for a week. It's always nice in Indy, even though the wind's always in your face, no matter which direction you're walking.
Enjoy Tampa, Mrs. Risden. It's a great place. It's a great place. All right, let's talk about Dan Campbell today. He did about 18 minutes at the podium, answering all kinds of questions. The first half of it was really about coaching interviews and the process, and it felt like, I'll be honest with you, by the way the questions were framed, it felt like people weren't super confident about the decisions and the hiring that the team made and that he made.
Well, can I tell you? Most of the questions that came after the first one were not asked by Detroit people. Yep. They were asked by outside forces. And that's one of the joys of the Combine, is that you can stand in front of any person that you want to and ask them questions. And Brad, and I wasn't there, so I don't know who asked all the questions, but I could hear some of them. Like I know one of the questions that came to Brad, came from Dave Burkett. I know another one came from Nolan Bianchi. Like I recognize their voices, but there were a lot of them in the Dan interview, especially, were like, I don't know who that is. Like, I think that's Mina Kimes, but I'm not sure. And so you do get asked. There were a lot of Bears-centric questions and Jets-centric questions from their reporters asking Dan about Ben and AG.
Yep.
And that was probably, I'd say, a third of his podium time today.
Yeah.
I think.
Which was crazy.
Minus.
Yeah. No, it was crazy to hear that much about it isn't that crazy because it's the national kind of groups of local media that get a chance to finally talk about and cover these things. And if you're covering a new coach, the opportunity to ask about him from his former place is a really good headline and really good information to grab. So it's not surprising, makes sense. But how much that dominated the press conference was interesting to me. But ever the class act, and you talk about him in the racing helmet, in being goofy and having a good time as the Grand Marshal of the Grand Prix.
That's it. Yeah.
He had fun, but he was complimentary about these guys, and even with I forgot his name already. Ben Johnson going to the Bears, right? Which stinks. It's in the division. You know that. But he very clearly said he's my good friend. I love that guy. But we play football. We play to win, right? And it was really, and it was very much he knows where the line is and cut that. Wes in the chat, he nails the question of the night to him. Why did you come to the combine? And his wife says to talk to you. And then he comes back to talk to the players and then talk to you. It was great. It was really
perfect
great.
Answer.
Yeah.
By the way, I know who asked that. That was asked by a Los Angeles reporter because the Rams aren't there. None of them are. Now, there have allegedly been Rams sightings around Indianapolis, but they are not participating in the combine is probably the safer way to say it. And that's not unusual for them. They didn't do it last year. I'm not sure I've ever heard Les Snead speak there. And I go every year. So yeah, that's just different stories for different stories. Dan's, by the way, he was scheduled to go on at 3:30. Then they sent us a communique that he'd be ready at 3:15. And then he got on at 3:40. Okay. Thanks for that.
Oh man, Wes again. He's just got us nailed on the coverage here. Do you have any thoughts on the strength of this year's class? Yeah, and walks off.
Yeah, he did actually talk a little bit about the fact that he hasn't watched any film yet, which is not unusual for any of the coaches, including Dan, but especially the guys who went deep into the playoffs, and Dan is one of them.
Yeah,
they don't watch college film. We could ask him about prospects, and he'd be like, Sure. I don't know who he is. He played at Iowa State, Northwest. Like, I don't know. Like, they don't. They really don't. They lean very heavily on their scouting staff and the general managers, and they are crash coursing it. Dan is probably right now, as he's eating takeout from some good place in Indianapolis, hopefully District Tap, the best place in Indianapolis, my favorite place. I'll be there tomorrow night. Can't wait.
Red Garden.
That might still be there. I've never been. I've walked by it all the time. Like my hotels. I stay right across the street from Lucas Oil Field, which by the way, I love going to Indianapolis. It's such a great downtown.
It is a great little downtown.
It's an awesome place.
It's a really small version of Denver's Lodo. That was which is what it's been a while since I've been there, but it was fantastic. I got to say, what I heard some national coverage, a big well-known person talking about Detroit, Woody Harrelson and they were talking about how awesome downtown was in Detroit. And I just want to echo, you can tell it, you can feel it, what's going on. I talked about it from being there in December. Detroit is one of the best towns in the United States right now. I'm telling you, what an awesome city on the rise, folks. If you don't get down there and spend some time and enjoy it. You've got a gem. And nothing stays great forever. Nothing stays bad forever. You've got to go down and love it and enjoy it. It's the only thing. I can't stress it enough. Some of us don't get to spend time there as much as we'd like. Go grab it while you can.
It's been nothing but pleasant lately. The last 4 or 5 years, especially, has been really, really nice.
Yep.
It does remind me of Cleveland back in the 1990s when that city was having its renaissance. Because downtown Cleveland was not a place that, I'm from there. I didn't want to be there until like 91, 92 when they moved the Indians, now the Guardians, and the Cavs downtown. Built the
Flats was hopping, right?
The Flats was incredible. I spent my bachelor party there. At least I think I had a really good time.
All right.
They built a concert arena downtown, like it was clean. And like you can see all that with Detroit now. There's great restaurants downtown. There's shopping, like it's safe to walk around. You're not going to get accosted. There's like a cool little market downtown that's like only one person can fit down every aisle. It's kind of a fun place. Like, and there's things to do. And that didn't used to be that way, because I remember when I first started going to Detroit 30-some years ago, when I first started dating my wife and going to see her grandparents in East Point, now East Detroit, and Canton and Plymouth, and like I'd be like, "Are we going to downtown?" Like, no, we're not. We're not going downtown Detroit. Nope. Like, oh, okay. Now, like, yeah, let's go.
I grew up down there. I spent a little time in Brightmoor, but it was a good time. It was a good time. It's a better time now. It's really a shine time. So, all right, let's do it. Let's get into Dan Campbell. Anything else to cover about his interview? Did we get any real insight from a combine and a player perspective? You're right. He isn't scouting players. I mean, he is. I think he is now, but he spent the last however many weeks getting his coaches up to speed. And I'm sure that the scouts and Holmes have presented him and the coaches with I'll just say a binder, but probably an iPad full of materials to get up to speed very quickly on the players and to take them down based on their area so that they can come well versed in the guys that they're supposed to be experts in. And there's probably this whole onboarding group for all the new coaches, getting the teams together, doing some work together on how we're going to work as teams and so on, kind of bonding, understanding communications, just the day-to-day stuff, and how things work. And then there's the deep dive into now we're on players, and we're going to talk about that and get ready for this process. So I think Dan is coming up to speed now with all that, with those coaches, and they're probably doing it together and relying on the scouts and Holmes's team to bring them to that point.
100%. And Dan said he interviewed, and he didn't remember the number, either 24 or 26 prospective coaches for these jobs.
Yeah.
And he talked about how they tried to hire Tashard Choice, the new running backs coach, Jameer Gibbs, running back coach at Georgia Tech, before he went to Alabama. How they tried to hire him 2 years ago, and when Deuce Staley left, and it didn't work out. He did talk about Scotty Montgomery moving from running backs to wide receivers, and was very complimentary towards Scotty in terms of he feels like that's a better position for him to coach. And again, it could be coach speak. And like, maybe I want to believe that he's never lied to me. Never. He might have not told the full truth, but when he says something, he means it. So I'll go back to one of the topics du jour that we argue about in the Slack all the time. When he says that they have full confidence in Hendon Hooker, that they signed Teddy Bridgewater because they valued his experience and they wanted that backup stability with, so it wouldn't be all thrust on Hendon. He meant it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe him 100%. I'm not gonna try to run Hendon Hooker out of town like some people are. I don't get that at all. Yes, they signed Teddy Bridgewater because he was a better option to be the number 2 quarterback in the postseason. Yeah. It doesn't mean that's the status going forward.
Right.
It's really not that hard, folks. It's not that hard.
And you could tell that he's really happy to have Casey Rogers, but he also really misses Terrell. Like he
was very complimentary towards Terrell, and clearly does like Casey Rogers, and that was definitely his top choice to get that defensive line coaching job.
Yep.
But he reveres Terrell Williams. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So that's a loss.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough, but I mean, it's a loss and it's a gain. And this is one of the things we talked a little bit about with the whole idea of turning over some of this staff. Have they figured out the Lions offense is not a headline. This is not a headline this year. So sorry, writers, you got to dig a little deeper, but no, this kind of thing keeps this stuff fresh and keeps this stuff churning and keeps other teams guessing. So I love it.
And he talked about that, about the different perspectives of having a defensive coordinator in Kelvin Shepard, who's a linebacker. by trade and not a defensive back like Aaron Glenn was.
Yep.
And how that might change the way that they operate their defense. Didn't get into a lot of detail on that.
Talks about how you usually look at it from coverage in to the front, right? And how Aaron Glenn always took a coverage first kind of mindset, but now you have Kelvin with all that experience in the middle, who's they're still gonna come coverage first and in, but he's gonna bring a little bit different concept out of it. And he said they've been driving and working hard within him and testing him, not telling him or promising him any jobs, but building him up to this role for the last 2 years, and they believe he's definitely ready. So that's really good to hear. Again. Dan doesn't lie. He might coach speak a little. He might dance around and use words a lot more cunningly than you would think. He's quite the cunning linguist. But he is. That's why the ladies like him. He's telling you. He's not lying to you. So he's definitely telling you something there. So there you go. All right. Yep. Let's see. Let's get into the Dan or Brad Holmes side of the interview. We had an interview out there today, and I think the big news. It's funny watching the meter swing and the pendulum swing. The one thing I'll say about Brad Holmes' interview, it doesn't sound like Myles Garrett is on the table, folks. Now, this could be.
I get some thoughts on this.
Okay. We talked about it last time, whatever. But it's a fun to watch people who are like, we're gonna get Max Crosby, we're gonna get Myles Garrett, we're gonna get it, and then they have this thing, and it's like, wham! It's a boring free agency. There's nobody. We're only signing the guys we got. What the hell? I love it. I absolutely love it, Riz.
It was a fun little few minutes there. So
he's a master at pulling the strings of people.
He's really good at that. And I will say Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, has his foibles. He's really good in these situations. He really is. I have always enjoyed AB. He's actually he liked me because I wasn't an ingrained Cleveland media, so he always liked it when I was there, and he'd like talk like I could go and talk to him. It was nice. It was great. But one of the things that I listened to their podium times were back to back. AB spoke first, and then he was at like podium 4, I think. Again, I wasn't there, so I'm going off memory on this. And then Brad was, I think, at podium 6, like in the 15-minute period after that. So going from listening to him from Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, say, like, yeah, he requested a trade, but that doesn't mean we have to honor it. Like he's like, I don't conceive of a world where Myles Garrett is not on this football team. Like there is nothing that anybody can offer us that would give us commensurate value for getting rid of him.
Yeah,
100%. Like, end of story. And that's not even talking about the fact that they would eat $36 million, and they would eat $36 million that they don't have. It's not happening, folks. And then Brad came in, and he spun it interestingly because he was asked about a Aiden Hutchinson contract extension. And he's like, the groundwork's going on that. And we all kind of knew that. We suspect that that's taking place. We don't know when it's going to get done, but the fact that he acknowledged that the talks have begun anyways is kind of nice. It's reassuring. But then he got into, it would be like, what was this word? Let me look it up because I had to write it. I had to listen to it like 6 times. As you know, Chris, I'm not great at transcribing, and the Lions didn't send us transcripts from this one. So
I got to build that transcription bot for you, brother. I really do.
So my Android phone does it if it's on my phone. But
I'm just going to have it automatically email them to you and fill your box with every single presser transcribed, so you don't have to mess with it anymore.
That'd be fantastic. Okay, so here's what Brad said. He's talking about premier pass rushers. Those guys are hard to acquire, and it's hard to keep them financially. Again, we have one that's due for an extension. We've already kind of gotten to the planning stage about him already. And so when you talk about adding another one, it's like, well, all right, can you financially add another one? Because you want to add the other one on top of everything that you have, and that makes it tough. So then, and Dave Burkett asked this question, can the Lions afford to add another premium talent after locking up Hutchinson? And Brad's like, probably not. And he said it in a way like,
he's telling you Hutchinson wants a lot of money, and he's probably going to get it, is what he said.
Right. And it's like, he said that in the tone of like, if I asked my wife, can I swim to Milwaukee across Lake Michigan? Like, probably could, maybe with a boat and a lot of food, but No. So, forget about Max Crosby. Forget about it's not happening. It's just not. Now,
sorry, I just want to jump in really quick, Chris. Sorry, hold that thought, because the one thing he said with this is, and he provided great context as to why not. We've had 7 first-round picks. Not just that, we've also got second-round picks. And oh, by the way, you've got like guys like Amon-Ra who just got his bag, right? You've got a lot of people that you have to re-sign that are going to be expensive.
Kirby.
It's the nature of the beast. That's what I meant to say. It's the way it is. So sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think it's important context to realize how much cost there is that's building in this. And we've talked about it last time about how 26 looks kind of rough for us, actually, cap wise, even though going into 25, we're whistling Dixies here.
Yeah. And so one of the things that did come out today is that the Washington Commanders are more than allegedly shopping Jonathan Allen, who would be really nice in Detroit. I don't know anything. Don't know any inside information on that, but that's something that I would keep an eye on, and where that might go, because that to me seems more likely than going out and signing Josh Sweat, who would be fantastic, Super Bowl hero. Well, you got to pay that Super Bowl hero tax. You don't really want to do that. Yeah. There's Khalil Mack. Okay, you're going to pay for a guy who's 30.
You're going into something that's next week's show, my friend.
Sorry, but like. The long and the short of it is, the big deal. It's not going to happen. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Like, look, I love to dream. Look, I have wild fantasies about Myles Garrett playing in Detroit. That'd be like unreal for me.
Yeah,
but it's not going to happen. It's okay.
It's a mix of pants off and Bert Kreischer shirt off. Like, it's full nudity, man. It's a full Monty, right? If you have a Myles Garrett there, and you can dream, but you gotta wake up in reality. I'll say, if anyone can make it happen, Brad Holmes is the guy that can make it happen. I just don't think he's going to want to. Not that he doesn't want to. I just don't think that he's going to or going to be able to really to pull that together. If he does, it's gonna blow my mind. It's like like you swimming across Lake Michigan. If you had a boat in the summer with life vest and like, it's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. So
yeah, like it's physically possible, but yeah. And so I forgot what I was gonna say now.
Well, the other part is Darius and Hutch. They're pretty formidable together. And you got them both next year, along with the guys you have, plus what you're going to draft this year. So there's still a whole lot of powder in the keg, man. Right?
Yep, that's right. Absolutely.
So Sweat, we'll talk about free agents next week ahead of free agency's opening, because a couple guys are going to get signed this week, and there's going to be some things that they do. So we will get to that next week. It's going to be the best time to really lay it out. And interestingly, episode 2,
I will know a lot more about what the Lions are looking for and what they're not looking for by that point too.
Yep.
That's just one of the weird things about going to the draft scouting combine in Indy is we tend to learn a lot about free agency because it happens like right after it. Yeah. And agents love to talk about their clients.
Of course they do.
They love to talk about their clients.
Anything else from Brad Holmes that we need to touch on before we move on?
The only other thing, and he said it, was, and I want to bring up the exact quote again. Let me scroll back here. Blah, 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 blah. Brad Holmes, I wrote the headline. We are not a needs-based drafting team.
Now you're giving away part of my script. I actually talk about need versus best player available too. I'm telling you guys, you're going to love this. This is like, and then, so the 7th episode brings all these individual topics together into a look across what the Lions have done, what successful teams have done, what failing teams have done. And I'll give you you guys are going to love this. I'm telling you, it's so many things that get talked about every year and it just, I'm proud of it. We'll see how it flies. Sorry.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it, Chris. I really am.
But yeah, they go ahead and say what he said, and I'm
gonna read his quote. And he expanded on that. He led off with, "We are not a needs-based drafting team," and then he said, "We just get the best football player for us. We don't really get too fixated on positions, but I will say it just kind of lined up perfectly because of what we went through during that previous season when we got so low on secondary depth." And he was talking about last year about drafting Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw with the first 2 picks. Cornerback was clearly a very big need at that point. But it just worked out that was the players that they got. They had also needed cornerbacks very badly the year before, and they didn't draft any, to many people's chagrin, and to their playoff chagrin. So that's what he was talking about. But again, that was a very easy headline pull for me as a writer who doesn't really do those very well. I'm like, oh, I got that.
Your pulling specialty is somewhere else. No, absolutely. Let's get on to it. Okay, so we got interviews.
I did was coming third in a truck pull back in the day.
We're gonna move on. I want to keep it football. I could go on so many different tangents right now, and they're not dirty either. Like I learned something about my dentist. It's weird. All right. I know, right? Like 2025 Combine preview. Let's get into it. Let's talk football. We'll do the dental show in June.
Yeah, that's a good time for that.
All right, let's talk about it here. Let's see. The NFL Combine. So for those who are new to football, Riz, what is the NFL Combine?
There are 330 some odd aspiring NFL prospects in Indianapolis this week getting medically tested. That's why the Combine originated, so all teams could get the same medical testing information. A lot of people, our friend Pat Kerwin will concur with this, will tell you that that's still the most important thing about the Combine is getting everybody's universal medical testing all in one spot. Because there are a lot of prospects this year who are coming off of interesting injuries or have weird histories. Brad Holmes, as a GM, has never shown an aversion to drafting injured players. I would expect a couple of them to be on the docket again.
He's a propensity versus an aversion, right?
Yes. Oh, he's attracted to it like flies to poop. It's just the way it is. He sees it as value, as an analytical edge. That's one of the and by the way, that's Moneyball for football.
Yep.
If you go back and watch Moneyball, which isn't a very good movie in time and holds up because the A's never won, they leave that out.
It's still a good movie.
In the future,
it's a good movie, but it's a way to be above average, right?
Yeah, it's not a good way to win. Like everything, but it takes advantage of market inefficiencies, and one of the market inefficiencies in the NFL is injured players. If you take chances on them, sometimes you're going to get lucky and it's going to pay off wonderfully for you. Other times it's not. Brad Holmes clearly doesn't worry about the not side. He's going to work on the let's make this work side, and for better or for worse, it's worked both ways for him. Marcus Davenport's a great example. The 2 games he was healthy, God, he was phenomenal. He was perfect for what they needed. And then he was gone, which is what he does in his career. Carlton Davis is a guy. He's what was it? He's not played more than 14 games in a season, but once. I think he's only played over 10 games, like 4 times in 7, 8, 9 years. He's got a lot of injury, and it's random. Like this year, he broke his jaw. Like that's not being injury prone. That's bad luck.
No.
Like he broke his wrist one year making a tackle. He got it stuck in the guy's shoulder pad thing and pulled it out, and his wrist went blah. Like weird things happen.
I wonder when they're going to start giving football players bisphosphonates to give them stronger bones.
No, man.
Instead of like just steroids, start working on the bone structure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But you go back in time, like remember Matthew Stafford, people thought he was injury prone all the time because he had weird injuries early in his career.
Yeah.
He's been great lately. He didn't miss a game in his last 5 years in Detroit?
Yeah.
Was very durable. So you can pay off on that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work. And that's one of the things that, we deal with them. So that back to the Combine. Every player has the opportunity to meet. Every team has the opportunity to meet for 15 minutes with every player that's there. They don't all do that. The Lions will meet with about 120 was the number that I was given. Last year they met with 116. And I have a list of who all they are somewhere. And a lot of times they are players that they have zero intention of drafting. So don't read too much into, and I try not to do this, like they met, and I'll use Christian Gonzalez as an example. because I brought this up on the Huge Show today. Christian Gonzalez was a guy who certainly on the football field fit what the Detroit Lions wanted, but it was abundantly clear from his podium interview, which took place before team interviews did, he was absolutely not a Detroit Lion. Like, they asked him somebody asked him who his favorite player was. I did his combine transcription interview, so I had to sit and listen to this painfully for like an hour doing it. And he's like, I don't really have a favorite player. And then, so like, what team did you watch growing up? He's like, I didn't really watch football growing up. I wasn't a football fan. I'm like, okay, you're done. Like, you will never be a Detroit Lion. Yeah. And Dave Burkett and I were standing next to each other, and we looked at each other, and we're like, oh. Like, okay, we're wasting time here. Dave actually wound up leaving. To his credit, he was right. He had good intuition on that. So, yeah. They will be meeting with a lot of people that they have zero intention of drafting. And they also will be not meeting with people formally that they have a lot of interest in drafting. That's just sort of the way that the things work. There are also informal meetings that are going on. I can guarantee you that right now, every single Lions coach and staffer that is there is interviewing a player right now off the record. That's just the way that works.
Yeah. Every team will interview every player. So already, if anyone says, "Oh, well, they talked to this guy," of course, everybody talked to everybody. Like, yes, just stop trying to draw lines there. But there are other ways you can look at players and find connections. We'll say, find propensities.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And like one of the things that happens is that they have a lot of guys that like Sean Dion Hamilton stays very tight with the Alabama football program because he went there. Kelvin Shepard knows every LSU player ever, like encyclopedic knowledge of them. Like, they've got those connections. Those coaches have agents. Their current players have agents. Like, oh, yeah, I'm Agent F. I represent your starting offensive lineman and your starting cornerback. I have two prospects that I think your team might really like. Let's have them talk. Let's talk to you about them. That kind of stuff happens like nonstop. And like, it's weird because it happens in the open. And this is one of the ways that we do get information down there. It's like, just go to the Denny's that's downtown, or the Hooters. Oh God. By the way, Hooters apparently is going out of business, which I feel bad for all the people that like their grease because it's nasty food. But there is a Hooters in downtown Indianapolis.
Sponsored
and I
by
wandered
Hooters.
in there one time. With my boy Thor Nystrom. Most people know him, Vikings guy, also a draft guy. We went in there and we were sitting, and there was an assistant coach for a NFC West team talking to an agent very loudly. Like, Thor and I didn't even have to eavesdrop, and like we learned that there was a free agent deal that was happening. Like, just sitting there at Hooters, like that happened. That kind of weird things happen all the time in Indy. That's why there's a lot of value in going.
So I want to go back to one of the things that you talked about like Kelvin Shepard and his ties back to LSU and the ties back to Alabama. This is one of the things that I can tell you that is, I hadn't thought about it, until the Lions started doing this. But this whole player coaching tree that Dan Campbell and this whole thing that Dan Campbell's really kind of started to popularize in the NFL, these connections back to the colleges where these guys came from are real. They're absolutely real. And and you talk about getting intel that you might not otherwise get to help fill your front office with information. Really, really solid stuff. And I know a guy, local kid, neighbor, went to Georgia, played for Georgia Tech, right? And Calvin would call 2-3 times a year, would show up once, twice a year, and just talk to the players and go hang out and just do the thing. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty interesting because they get to know these guys, they get to understand them, and they build those kind of ties into the program, and the program loves it. When you're a college player, to have someone like Calvin show up, right? The stars that were part of your program, it's part of the whole, quote unquote game, right? But this is bi-directional information now, and this is where you can get some really, really good understanding about players. And it's not just like coach buffing up a guy because he was part of his program. It's the coach buffing him up, but we also know some of the backstreet knowledge from
Right.
Jalen Carter, whatever
Like,
else. Right?
and you know
understand.
their coaches. You know who coached them in college. You know
Yep.
their position coaches. You know the people around the program. You
Yep.
know if they hung out with the right boosters or the wrong boosters. You learn all that stuff with that. That's one of the reasons why I think getting David Shaw, who coached at Stanford for a long time now, he's been out of there for a little bit. He's not going to have a lot of inside information on Alec Ayo-Manor, just as an example of the Stanford players coming out this year. But you better believe that he can get that information. And there's familiarity with a lot of guys who are free agents, and just that fraternity that's out there. It's very real. I didn't really realize it. I actually got Lomas Brown, Florida Gator, had a guy come up to him at training camp this year who was a Florida teammate of his. I'm like, wow. And they started talking like they had dinner the night before.
Yep.
And Lomas had to be reminded who he was at first. It's crazy how those connections are there, but it's real at all levels. I get to know a lot of the GLIAC programs that are around here. Grand Valley State, which has had some dudes in the NFL, they market those guys. They come back. That's where Brian Kelly got his start. He will still reference it. When we talked to Braden Fiske last year down at the Senior Bowl, and we talked to him, he was at Florida State, but he was at Western Michigan, and the fraternity of Western Michigan was still very real for him. And by the way, the Lions liked him a lot, and he did great, which makes me feel good about the scouting department. Let me ask you this, Chris, because this does come up. Do you feel good when a team like the Lions, they really like a player and it winds up being a big hit for another team, and it's like, are you more disappointed that oh crap, we didn't get him, or are you like, yeah, we liked him, that means that our scouting department is good? Where do you weigh on that?
Yeah, it's a heart and mind thing, right? My heart says, I want all the good guys. I want Crosby. I want Hutch. I want Garrett. I want all the unrealistic stuff because there's a salary cap. I want the salary cap not to apply to my team and there be no budget and we're going to win it all. That's what my heart says, right? So yeah, I want them, and I'm mad they went somewhere else. But my brain helps me appreciate the quality of the evaluation that the team in the front office is doing, and we see it in the draft. And it's not like we've been. What's the word? It's not like we've been flim-flammed in the draft by somebody else. It always feels like we're flim-flamming when we do the trades and we do everything else. There's just so much more sense behind how the Lions conduct themselves in these situations. My mind tells me if they didn't get a guy they liked because somebody else got him, good job, guys. Good job identifying valuable talent. And it just sucks that we drafted 28th instead of 26th, right? I mean, it's just where you go. That's where my head's at. Sorry, I gave you both answers to one question, but I'm learning my coach speak.
Good job, Dan.
All right. What are we looking for in the combine? What do you want to see? And what specifically, we talked about positions last week. If there's any players that jump out at you that you want to see, you're really looking forward to seeing, and that may be kind of like borderline based on the performance.
Mel Kiper put him in his mock draft today. Femi Oladejo from UCLA. Yep, everybody's like, who? I think he's 88th on the NFL mock draft consensus. But I haven't actually looked at you have a consensus. I'm going to start
publishing that, I think.
You should. I find value in it. But he is not a guy who has ever broached the first round of mock drafts before, and Mel put him at number 28 to the Detroit Lions. I can verify that the Lions have interest in him. Is it at 28? No idea. Don't know. But he's a fantastic fit for what they want.
Yeah.
And he's going to test very well. And just a little bit of background on him. He was an off-ball linebacker that moved to edge. He kind of did the opposite of Derek Barnes, who went from edge to off-ball linebacker.
Right.
And they're about the same size. This guy's a really natural fit if Derek Barnes leaves in free agency. But he could also play with him.
Yeah.
And he was really good in Mobile.
Yep.
Really good in Mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the chance to be a stunning player And again, if you listen to the Huge Show, this is nothing new for you, but the reason why UCLA moved him was because they had a linebacker named Carson Schlesinger, who wound up being great. And I think he is probably the best off-ball natural linebacker in this draft. He's not going to be drafted as such, but I think he's the best one. And like they found a way to get him on the field. Like I kind of like how UCLA did that. But
I have him at
learn
121.
who Femi Oladejo is.
Yep. I have him at 121 on my big board, but like you said, he's moving up, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll put. Maybe I'll keep it update.
Let's put it in our Slack,
day.
anyways. Give the good people something for their money.
There you go. It updates every day for me, so I really should do something with it besides read it. All right, so there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's one that I'm looking at with very intent eyes. And one of the things that I do when I'm down in the Senior Bowl is I do a little bit of pre-work on some guys. Like, does this guy feel like a Lion? Does he not feel like a Lion? And there was a couple guys down there that I'm like, Cad, probably not coming to Detroit. Just we learned that they're not cut from that cloth. But then there are guys who are. I'm very interested in Minnesota offensive lineman Ariante Ursary, because when he talked, and I was talking with him almost privately, it was myself and John Vogel, draft guy, really good dude. I enjoy spending time with John a lot, and we sort of see things through the same kind of eyes. And he, like, his talk about wanting to finish people and wanting to destroy their will to get up from the ground, like, that's Dan, that's Hank Fraley, like that's Penei Sewell. And he's a guy is probably going to be in that range of the first round. And again, the Lions don't draft for need, but they also don't not do it. They are drafting more for 2026, 2027 needs than immediate needs. And that is a very difficult concept for a lot of us, myself included, to grasp. When you used to have to start your 7th round pick every year, otherwise you weren't going to have anybody there. And now your 1st round pick this year might not start, and that's a very real possibility no matter who they draft. 1st round pick might not start a game as a rookie. That's a very real possibility depending on how free agency goes.
Right.
Okay, like, we got to change things up a little bit. Now you got to look ahead, and I will just say, look at the depth chart in 2026 at edge. It's Aiden Hutchinson. That's it. So they're going to attack it somewhere.
Yep.
But
we got Tim Stein in the chat saying, "Don't draft any players whose names I can't pronounce." It's usually a good strategy, except imagine teaching your tongue to do new things. That could be super value if played well. I want to say, like, one guy we've talked a little bit about on the edge is Mike Green. I kind of had my crush on him as we went to the Senior Bowl. My guy is just marching up the charts. Like, he's likely not available when the Lions draft. Like,
some of the information that came out today about him, if it's even remotely true, he will not be a Lion. It's just unfortunate. Goes back to his time at Virginia, which, and again, none of it's confirmed, so I don't want to say too much about that. But
maybe the Lions put it out.
If the allegations are close to being true, he ain't coming to Detroit. Like, just forget that. But he is a guy that, and like, there are guys like I'm fascinated by what Nick Emenwari is going to do, the safety from South Carolina. He's got a chance to rewrite the athletic, like for Kent Platt's Math Bombs RAS.
Yep.
He's got a very real chance to be a 10. He's 6'3", 227 pounds. He has a confirmed 41-inch vertical. He has a confirmed GPS time over 23 miles an hour. The guy's an athletic wonder, like, amazing. I like to watch guys like that and see how they fit, because he can also play a little bit of football. He can't go backwards, but he can go forwards really nicely. And he's bigger than a lot of linebackers in this class. So, there's dudes that are like that are going to be fun to watch for me. And, like, again, I don't think the Lions are going to have a lot of interest in him. I've heard that the Vikings have some interest in him. We'll see how valid that information is. It's still very early. It's still too early to know anything.
What about
honestly?
Nick Scourton? I feel like he's like right in the sweet spot for the Lions.
So it's a big weekend for him because he wasn't good in Mobile.
Right.
He was very stiff in his lower body, could not turn the corner. And one of the things that they do, watch the positional drills when they're on the field. The athletic testing, look, he's going to test fine. He's dynamic in his first 10 yards, which is all you really need to be. He's not going to run the 40 all that well, I don't think. But if he runs the short shuttle, if he runs the 3-cone, they better be at least average times. Otherwise, he's going to struggle because he was not good in Mobile. He could get off a block and then try to go around, but he'd have to, like, his tack was like, yeah, where Mike Green's like, like in there.
It was a different, completely different look.
Yeah. And Umami Ellen, our friend that we interviewed down there, also had some issues with lower body tightness, and that's something that I'll be watching for again, because he's a guy that, just from us talking to him, he seemed like a guy that the Lions would like.
Yeah, he absolutely did. All right, let's see. Anybody else to keep an eye on, or that you're interested that has a make or break day, a weekend ahead of them here that could make him a target or not?
Darius Alexander from Toledo needs to show that Mobile wasn't a fluke, because he was fantastic down there.
Yeah.
Our guy Mad Max Hairston is going to run. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's fast.
I would also be nice if he weighed more than 175 pounds. I love the guy, though.
I do too.
He would be a wonderful third-round pick.
Was absolutely fantastic. Such a great kid out of Kentucky. He's marched up. I mean, I've seen him on the board. He's at 62 for me. You know what I mean? It's He's
the Lions pick 60th.
Yeah, he's working his way up, and he's like we said, we talked to him. He's the West Bloomfield kid. He loves Detroit. Comes from Detroit. His family's in Detroit. He's well grounded. He's smart as fuck. Just a good, lovable kid, and he's Detroit mindset. You know what I mean? He's a Detroit Lion kind of guy. Love to see if Mad Max makes it over to Detroit. That would be a good time, man.
Yeah, and I'm looking at like some of the other guys, like the day 2 offensive linemen, because I do think that the Lions are going to be interested in offensive linemen in that range. And I want somebody to wow me. I want somebody to come up, whether it's Wyatt Milam, who it sounds like, from the buzz that I got from people that are in Indy today, and I'm in a bunch of different group chats and everything, and I'll find out more. It sounds like he has embraced being a center, which is interesting. Because he didn't allow a sack in his last 3 years at West Virginia, playing every snap as a 2-time team captain and 3-time all Big 12 academic honor roll type thing. So he certainly fits what the Lions are looking for. Just in general, team captain means something. Academic all-conference means something. Academic all-American means a lot. Football character, but also the fact if they played another sport seriously. The Lions like that a lot. They don't like football automatons. They like guys that have a little bit more interest in it.
Yep.
That is something that
I know when athletic ability. You know what I mean? And if you look at like how football has changed, you watch these guys doing yoga now. Like you see, and even like in stretching, you see the flexibility of these giant linemen. That's just off, like further than I could ever stretch my body in my best shape ever. These guys are folding themselves up. A lot of that is from a multi-sport athlete who has to be able to do multiple things like that. So there's a level of athleticism that comes with being a multi-sport athlete, and that's why it's one of those things that's prized by the Lions.
Just to go on our 3rd-round pick from this year, we have already used it as Giovanni Manu. We had him last year. Yeah. They used a 3rd-round pick on him. His flexibility for a dude his size is unreal. Like, again, he's not anywhere close as a football player, but you absolutely see from just 15 minutes of watching him stretch and warm up in practice, you get it. Like that's why I see why they had appeal in him.
Yep.
And hopefully he learns football, because if he does, it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be Giovanni.
Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. But yeah, the other things that they look for, passionate about football. They love guys who have given back to their communities and give back to like their high school football program. That went to college, that when they talk to their college coaches, the coaches like know what they did. They speak well of them.
No one hanging around the bowl, no turds.
Yes, no floaters.
Yeah, those floaters,
and they're really
or mid depths. Yeah. It's all they flush them all.
They do. unlike some people.
Yeah, and every freaking public restroom I ever walk in, you animals. You are animals,
Yes.
people.
Oh,
God,
my God.
it's gross.
So quick thing for people. And my daughter's sitting here, and I related to her because she was here. We were in Kansas City a couple weekends ago for a volleyball tournament, and we're at a giant convention center in downtown Kansas City. There is a bank of urinals on the wall in the men's restroom. There are probably 15 of them. I go to the second one from the right. All the other ones are unoccupied. Dude comes in and goes right next to me. Don't freaking do that. Don't ever be that guy. At least one stall in between if they're available. Please. It freaked me out. Yes, it is. I know. She's like, really? Like, that's freaking weird.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, you get you turtle. You're like, what are you doing here? Start humming some police. Don't stand so close to me.
I actually looked. I'm like, look down, like.
You need something? You
and then he
my
washed
pocket?
his hands. Oh my God, he did the Kyle Mikey. He didn't wash his hands.
He said it out loud.
He's not with us anymore. He's not on the Lions beat anymore. Oh man. We'll edit that out of the audio only portion of the podcast.
Kept that secret for so long. Okay, let's keep going. Let's just move on. Let's flow. The things you learned at Senior Bowl.
Back to football.
Okay, yeah. Back to the old football. Let's get to the next topic, Riz. I don't want to necessarily do a speed round, but I just want to get your thoughts on a couple players. Lions free agents. Next week, we're going to go deep into free agency, talk all about it. But there's a couple of Lions free agents. We want to kind of say, what does this look like? All right, so I'm going to hit you through. We'll go like 6 guys. Starting first one I want to talk about is, and this isn't all of them. These 6 guys aren't the only ones, but I think these are the big ones we need to know. Carlton Davis III as a cornerback. Arguably the biggest name of all the unrestricted free agents of the Lions team this year.
He should be the most expensive, which would be why they'd want to keep him, because they need cornerbacks. Every team needs a cornerback.
Yeah.
There's not a team in the NFL that doesn't have cornerback amongst their top 4 needs.
Yep.
Even the Cleveland Browns, who have 3 really good ones, after the third, I don't even know who it is. Every team needs them. So yes, I am hopeful that Carlton Davis comes back. I want him back. Yeah. I think the Lions want him back too. Yep. I think he wants to come back as well. He's at the point in his career where he can be a little bit of a ring whore and pick where he wants to go, and maybe Jacksonville offers him more.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't want more. Maybe he wants to win more.
And it is a thing about right now money versus next year money. Right. And so you're looking at 70 million. I know they want to carry some over to help relieve next year's pain. But he's going to be the most expensive, right? He's going to be the most expensive of the guys, and his value is climbing. So we'll see what happens with CD3. We'll see what goes on. I'd love to be able to keep him. So hopefully, his love, as Peaceful Tim, he loves our head coach. Hopefully his love for the coach helps him meet. What do you think? What do you think we got, Wes? What's the cutoff for CD3? As far as contract dollars,
I think he's going to get $15 million a year, maybe. You're looking, you got to pay for good talent. Now, maybe because he's older and because he does have that injury history, maybe he doesn't get as much. I would say that it's more of, and one of the things that we've, and you and I have talked about this, and I've talked about this with some other Lions folks as well. The money per year isn't necessarily as important as the percentage of guaranteed money.
There you go.
Especially going forward, because it's harder to hide that money. And maybe it's a deal where, 3 years, $45 million, $15 million a year, but we'll guarantee 60% of it. Or 3 years, $40 million, but we'll guarantee 70% of it. That's the sort of trade-offs that a lot of teams, the Lions being among them, are making these days. Yeah. They're giving the player the option. Do you want more money? Do you want to give your agent a higher commission on the total value of the contract? Because that's what they get paid on. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why they used to have those astronomical contracts that there was no intent that was ever going to be paid, because the agents got paid on it. Well, the NFLPA figured that out. Kirk Cousins figured that out.
Yep.
Give him a ton of credit on that.
Yeah.
So the higher percentage of guarantee, generally, you're going to get a little bit lower of an APY. And that's the trade-off with it.
As a guy like Carlton Davis, it's a decision he's going to make when it comes down to, we talk about percentages. The guaranteed money is, as a guy who's been relatively injury prone, how much am I going to walk away with no matter what? Right? If I get hurt again, which seems to be happening, do I feel gun shy or do I believe in myself? Right. And that's what's going to help them land on what they're comfortable with as far as that contract. So that's going to be an interesting one. I hope we find a way to keep him and not break.
Good question, Wes.
He's a good kid.
Good question.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay. Next one up is guard Kevin Zeitler, who looked pretty good this year. He did a really, really good job out there.
So good.
86.
No bad plays.
86.8 PFF grade overall this year. Looking good. He's 34. A little bit short-term asset. Does his age push him out? Did his reliability and play hold him up for another year? Talk to me, Riz.
I will go back to what I said at the end of the season when I talked to somebody who knows him, is that if he's going to play in 2025, it will be in Detroit. But he might not play. He might choose to retire.
Yep.
He's been through a lot. He has won. That impetus isn't necessarily there for him as much. So I hope he's back. They're a better team with him. Now, having said that, Christian Mahogany is going to start at one of the guard positions. So you don't know if you're looking from a budgetary standpoint, do you pay Kevin Zeitler that $10 million that could go to signing somebody else at a more critical position? And you hope that you can get a serviceable year out of Graham Glasgow, which he didn't have after about week 10 last year. Or do you bring Zeitler back, put Mahogany in at left guard, and move Glasgow to either being your backup, or say take this and take this money or pay cut or leave?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do on that. But
that's the tensions that are.
Zeitler is the easiest guy of the guys that you're going to talk about, no matter who else you bring up, to replace, because they have his direct replacement already on the roster, and he's good.
But you want to replace Glasgow.
It's a complicating factor.
Right. I think the tensions on this one, because I think the motivation is for the Lions to sign him for another year because you've got Glasgow and you can still draft for it. And hopefully Glasgow gets 10 games, but then you've brought up your other guy to get him ready to start. Let's, just thinking through the things here. But I think the big tensions here are Zeitler can retire, and that's it. He's got that in his pocket. How much are you going to pay me to stay? Right. So that's going to push his price up, and that's the two things going to play against each other, and his desire to retire just might price him out of the Lions cap window. So we'll have to see how that plays out. It's an interesting, it's a completely different kind of negotiation than normal. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for the Lions. But even with this, you've got to have, even if you sign him for a year, I mean, you're looking at Decker soon. Right. I mean, do you sign him again? He's getting up there. Does he want to retire? Who knows? What about Ragnow? Right. Do you want to leave yourself 3 guys missing? I mean, you've got to keep pumping. And every team, not only do they want a cornerback, what else do they want?
Offensive line.
Yep.
Every team should draft at least one offensive lineman and at least one cornerback in every draft. I would do 2 if you have the picks to do it.
Yeah. It's one of those things where even if you sign him, you have to draft. You have to. It's you got a lot to fill up over the next couple of years. All right. Third person I want to talk about, Levi Onwuzurike. He's been such an interesting cat. When he's played well, he's played really, really well. Took a while with the injuries to come back. You can see that the injury is not with him anymore. He's gotten himself almost to football shape, right? I mean, it took it. It's a little bit of a gamble for the Lions to sign him. Is he going to continue to grow and improve? Has he peaked? Is he a little bit fragile? Like, it was a contract year kind of thing that he gave all that? What are you doing with Onwuzurike for Detroit Lions, Riz?
So I wrote up a thing about him on Lions Wire this week, and it was tough for me because I do understand both sides of wanting to sign him and also not being able to. I kind of think he's going to get more money elsewhere. If the contract projection that Justin Rogers put out there is even close to accurate, there's not a chance in the world he's back with Detroit. If it's closer to what Spot Track and Over the Cap have projected, he could be back, but then you're looking at, okay, he's just coming off his best year. He played more than any other Lions defensive lineman last year. He was healthy, which is crazy.
One hell of an ability on this team.
Yes, exactly. He can play edge. He can play inside. He can play anywhere from the 7 to the 3. Even they played him at those 2-eye before. That's value. But in his best season, 1.5 sacks, 4 tackles behind the line. Like Mekhi Wingo got that much in like 1/10 of the snaps.
True.
Like the production isn't commensurate with that level of salary. And I don't know if he's ever going to get more production than that. Because, again, at Washington, well, he was hurt when he was at Washington. He wasn't a huge producer. Like, he was disruptive, but he didn't finish. Well, we saw disruption without finishing against Jaden Daniels and even against Caleb Williams at times. Like, that's bad.
Yeah,
very, very bad. You've got to finish.
Yeah.
If it's actually better to not disrupt, because then you want him in the pocket, because he's not going to beat you from the. Certainly, Caleb Williams is not going to beat you from the pocket.
Right.
Like you're better off not pressuring him at all than getting pressure and not getting home.
Right.
That's also true with Justin Fields. Who knows where he's going to be? But there are a lot of quarterbacks that are like that. Believe it or not, Peyton Manning was one of them. You were better off not pressuring him at all than you were at getting pressure. Andrew Luck, who followed him in Indianapolis, you were certainly better not pressuring him, because when he was under pressure, and I actually did the data on this back in 2014, 2015, he was the number 2 quarterback in the league when he was under pressure. When he wasn't under pressure, he was 20th. Like, by the way, Goff's like that too.
So it'll be interesting. Wes, again, with a good one. But that pressure will be amazing with a healthy Hutch. Also, Aleem being hurt helps Levi's leverage a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's go on to the next one.
He's a tough one. I can see either way, 50-50.
Yep. Tim Patrick, wide receiver. He was reliable number 3 this year, right? Replacing Josh Reynolds. He's 31, right? Modest stat line, a wide receiver 3, but he's a hell of a culture fit. They love him, and he can delay your need for an X kind of receiver if you sign him, and he's not going to break the bank. But can you get better, especially with the other things you're going to be drafting for this year? This is why it's hard, because with free agency before the draft, God, I would love to see how you get you know what I mean? But I mean, it also makes it more fun. It makes it more fun.
I'll just say with Tim Patrick, you're talking about a guy who has missed 3 full seasons in the last 5 years, including 2 straight seasons with injuries. He's 31. He's not getting younger. He's not getting faster. Are you going to rely on that to be your wide receiver 3? If you bring him back, and I do think that there's interest in bringing him back, you better not be relying just on Tim Patrick. Like, he's a 1-year deal, and I wouldn't pay him much more than the minimum. Load him with some incentives, maybe. Like, hey, if you're active for 12 games, here's $500,000. Yeah, like you can do that sort of thing with him. Yeah, and I hope that he would be amenable to that, because I'm not sure that he was really good when he was here, but you also have to understand why he was here and why he was not in Denver anymore. Yeah, and that's the rub on it. He's not an upside player anymore. That sounds too harsh on him, because I do like him and I do want him back.
I love Two-Ply.
You better not just have Tim Patrick back. Yeah.
He's my guy. I really, I root for him. I really like him. He's one of those guys that he's got a hell of a redemption arc just sitting in front of him if he can pull it off. And that's I
think the best way to say it is you bring him back, but you better have competition for him. Like, you don't just rely on him being the solution. If you do that, that's careless on the Lions' part. I don't think they're going to do that.
Let me see if you get the same judgment on this one. Right. Defensive end Marcus Davenport, injury plagued, season ender this year, uncertain future. When he's healthy, he's a heck of a threat.
He was so good,
but
he really was.
Is he worth the risk? Is he worth it? Or do you go for a healthier edge, which maybe you do both? But you think about what's his rate, what's it going to cost. It might be a soft market on him just because of the injuries. You could wind up with a cheap chance at a reunion here, Riz. What do you think?
I kind of hope that's what happens. Again, you bring him back, let him compete, but don't rely on him to be the answer. If he surprises you and stays healthy for 3 months, that's fantastic. Don't bank on it and don't pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Pay for 8 games.
I do know his biggest advocates are still in the building.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. All right. Last but not least, this is one that a guy who seems so often to get overlooked and forgotten because of how early he got hurt. Linebacker Derek Barnes, right? Big guy, special teams. But this year he was well beyond just a special teams performer. He was having a career year, kind of stepping out of that role as a rotational backer to a full-time backer.
Full-time
young, the right identity, tough guy. They
finally found the right position for him.
Well, and does that in a new defense too justify a new deal, or will we look for bigger names? Does his injury make him a little bit more cost effective to retain? Talk to me, Riz. Derek Barnes, love the guy. He had a hell of a start this year, man.
Because I will tell you, when their linebacking core was Barnes, Anzalone, and Campbell, there wasn't a better linebacking core in football. There wasn't.
Yeah.
It only unfortunately lasted for 4 games, and they missed Barnes a lot. And I was very hopeful that Trevor Nowatzki would be able to step up, and to some extent he did, but he's not Derek Barnes, and you can't expect him to be Derek Barnes. And they tried Isaac Ukwu, they tried Quan Alexander, they tried all kinds of Ezekiel Turner. Oh my God, that was rough. They tried all sorts of dudes, and nobody could do what Derek Barnes did. I think Derek Barnes is going to come to them and say, show me the money, because you've seen what life is like with me and what life is like without me. And in a defense where, again, we'll go back to this, Kelvin Shepherd was a linebacker. I think you're probably going to see a little bit more emphasis on the linebacking, because that's just my speculation. I don't know that. But it makes sense that a linebacker will want to have good linebackers on his defense.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Well, this is where
I think he'll be back.
I do too. But this is where the free agency before the draft plays against something like Derek, because he can walk in and say, show me the money. And they can say, show me your scar. And that's the thing. Right? That's the thing that works against him, especially right now. If it was a year ago and he came back and had a year that went on like even 3/4 as good as his first couple games were, but he played it out the whole year, he's getting big money, right? It's just it's that injury puts the question marks up there and makes it. I want him back. I think he'll be back, but I don't think he's going to be able to command from the Lions all that kind of money. And it's like, we can get another one just like you. And I say that, and I don't mean that as a human being, right? I want to make sure that I say that, but that's part of the whole idea of the draft. With the draft coming later, it's like, man, it's not, I don't want to say it's not hard, but there's a lot of linebackers in the draft, right? And I got Shep. So
yeah, we've shown we can develop linebackers, including Barnes.
Yep.
Can we develop his replacement? Maybe. That's the things that they have to weigh. And it's hard. And that's over our pay scale, Chris, unfortunately. We can offer our insight on what we want them to do and what we'd like them to do, but that's their choice.
It'd be a discount for me, but whatever. Oh, man. Okay. Hey, one time a show, we always ask, like, subscribe. Please do that if you're here watching us. Throw a like up there. Help people find us. It's this time of year where we kind of get into the off-season depth, the idea of what's the concept of building a team. Great series coming up, 7-part series about the draft, the strategy for building a team, from winners, losers. I got to tell you, it's not just data-driven, Riz. I've got stories built into each one too, so it's one of these things that it's gonna a little something for everyone. I'll just stop there. So it's that time of year, we got live stuff, so you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, help people find us and help us get the information out there, and it just helps us, and we appreciate you being here with us doing the thing. With that, we're going to close out the show. Riz, I appreciate you for joining again this week, brother.
I just got a text that I need to respond to, so
All right. Don't forget about us on Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions podcast, patreon.com/Detroit Lions podcast. If you kick $5 a month our way, you get access to the most intelligent Lions chat and insider info on the internet, the Slack chat. You can always give less than $5, and we definitely appreciate it. But yeah, I think Riz, you're right. I'm going to put the big board up there on the
just show everybody what we're looking at.
Yeah,
because I think it's fascinating. Because I think it's very different from a lot of what the narratives are that are out there.
Yeah, and it's a pretty nifty approach, I think, that I've come up with here. I really do. All right, so yeah, don't forget about that, and then also on Twitter at Jeff Risdon, El Giuseppe Risdone, and at Detroit Lions Podcast. I guess it's DET Lions Podcast and DET Lions
that way. We got a mirror.
DET Lions Podcast. Always pants free, hanging out. You know what's going on with the show wherever, and. Peace with Tim. And let's see, go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com, DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast. What happens when they do that, Riz?
I get to come in your ear holes automatically.
And look at that. Look at those eyes. Isn't that exactly what you want? Isn't that the face you want looking at you when your ear holes are being filled? Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time. Maybe that scares people away, Riz. Maybe we should do something different. I don't know.
It's fair point.
It's a pretty thriving group. Maybe it keeps the right people out. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time with the Detroit Lions podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems. Watch Riz this week coming at you from the combine. He's got coverage for you on Lions Wire, his Twitter, his Blue Sky, all that stuff. He's rocking it. So make sure you stay tuned with him. Also, watch here for our new series that's coming, Ambition Brown, and all the other great stuff we got going on. No pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, because we are Detroit Lions and Reddit Connection. Thank you all for joining us.